Good afternoon, Cedarfield. How is everybody doing today? I am Karen Wilder. I am the dietitian here at Cedarfield. I realized that I pretty much for the last several months I forget to introduce myself. Hopefully my faithful viewers know who I am, but if you're new and you don't recognize me, that's who I am. So I will try to remember to introduce myself from now on. So first of all, I wanted to say, I thought, since we are in the midst of Hanukkah now, it would be very appropriate if I talked about some of the foods that may be traditional during Hanukkah, or some of, how food is tied into some of the celebrations, or even just talk a little bit about Jewish cuisine. And unfortunately, I apologize. It just didn't happen this week. I'm a Catholic girl, so coming up with information about Jewish cuisine probably would have taken me a much more preparation than I allotted time for the show. So it didn't happen. So maybe we'll save it for next year. I'll have to remember, or some other time. The extent of my knowledge of Jewish cuisine is what I typically eat when I go to Pearlie's downtown, which is just a few blocks from my apartment. It's one of my favorite restaurants. So I probably should learn a little bit more about Jewish cuisine because I like it a lot more than I realized. If you have not been to that restaurant, I can't recommend it enough. It's so delicious. Anyway, so I will just say Happy Hanukkah to those of you who are celebrating and enjoy all of the wonderful Jewish cuisine that you enjoy during this celebration. And I'll owe you a Jewish cuisine topic sometime later on. All right, so what we are going to discuss today is a topic that's very popular, especially this time of the year. It's December 1st, which we just can't deny any longer that it's the holiday season, right? I'm always kind of a holdout. I kind of am in denial for a while. I love Halloween, and then I like Thanksgiving and fall. But come December 1st, it's pretty hard to deny that it's the holidays, and we are in the midst of all the celebrations kicking off. So today we are going to talk about one very crucial part of the holidays celebration, and that's alcohol. It's kind of, I don't want to say it's controversial, but, it's definitely socially a very important part of a lot of our experiences and gatherings and celebrations. From a nutrition and health standpoint, maybe it's not, the best for us. So I do recognize the enjoyment that you can get out of alcohol if it's, if you drink it responsibly. I understand the social aspect of drinking alcohol. I certainly enjoy drinking alcohol. And I'm sure many of you do when you're having dinner, especially with friends or loved ones, or when you go to Christmas parties or holiday parties, or any kind of celebration really, even just kind of casual gatherings on the weekends. But today I'm going to focus more on the nutrition and health aspect of alcohol, which is going to probably kind of be more of a bummer when we talk about alcohol, because there aren't a lot of nutritionally positive things about drinking alcohol, unfortunately, despite how much we enjoy drinking it. So, it's kind of like anything else, like sweets and desserts and maybe really fatty, decadent, rich foods. These are things that we can certainly enjoy in moderation. It's not terribly detrimental. So let's jump into it. Again, this is going to be a little more sciencey, health and nutrition focused. I don't really have any fun facts like I normally do. Sorry. I'm kind of slacking this week, I guess. All right. Anyway, so let's start from the top. When you actually drink alcohol, it travels through your GI system, and it's absorbed primarily in the small intestines, which most of our foods, our nutrients are. As food and drinks make their way through our GI system, they're getting processed and broken down, but the actual nutrient absorption for most foods, most nutrients happens in the small intestines. The stomach's just kind of like a churning and processing place. But some alcohol does actually get absorbed, in the mouth, in the esophagus, and in the stomach. So some of it's getting kind of taken away, but most of it's being absorbed in the small intestines. From there, it travels to the liver, and the liver then processes that alcohol, detoxes, that alcohol from our system, so to speak. And then and then the body can extract some of the calories from that alcohol and use it for energy, but anything that's excessive then just gets stored as fat, unfortunately. And alcohol is one of those things that's sometimes pretty easy to consume excessively. So that's kind of one of the pitfalls that we'll talk about a little bit later. So I consider alcohol an empty calorie. So that's a phrase you may have heard me say, especially when we talk about sugar, especially things like sodas. So alcohol does have calories, and if you watch the show, calories are not the enemy. Our bodies need calories, right? Calories are like fuel for our bodies, kind of like gas for our car. The pitfalls again is when we consume too many calories. We have a set amount of calories that our bodies need, and when we go over that amount, then those calories just get stored as fat and start to kind of pile up, and that's when the problems set in. So alcohol does provide calories. It falls kind of in between carbohydrates and proteins and fats. It provides 7 calories per gram. That's a lot of math you probably don't need to know. But anyway, so it does provide calories, so it does have that purpose. But again, anything in excess just kind of gets stored away as fat. All right, so when we talk about a serving size of alcohol, so if I say, 1 drink per day, that we're talking about kind of 1 serving. And so let's discuss what those serving sizes are. So a serving size of beer is 12 ounces. And then a serving size of wine is 5 ounces. And then a serving size of liquor, hard liquor, is 1.5 ounces. So, when your doctor asks you, how many drinks per day do you have? Or if your dietitian asks you, or if anyone asks you, you're filling out one of those health surveys, and they ask you, how many drinks per day do you consume? So you have to consider, well, what are you drinking? And then how much of that are you drinking? And so those serving sizes I just listed is considered 1 drink. So again, if you have 12 ounces of beer a day, you're having 1 drink. And if you have maybe you have 12 ounces of beer and then you have 5 ounces of wine, well, you've had 2 drinks. But if you're filling up that wine glass, kind of doubling up and maybe having 10 ounces, then that's, even though it's 1 glass, it's technically 2 glasses. You've got, enough for 2 servings in the 1 glass. It still counts as 2 glasses. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about how much you drink per day. And with that being said, the recommended, definition for moderate drinking or responsible drinking from a health perspective remains the same at an average of 1 to 2 drinks per day for men, and then 1 drink per day for women. So again, that's something to keep in mind when you're, trying to drink responsibly from a health perspective. All right, so going back to the calories, as we talked about, beer and wine typically provide, if you're sticking to 1 serving size, or 1 drink, 1 drink of beer, 1 drink of wine, usually that's about 100 to 150 calories. And then a cocktail could be anything. It just depends on what you're putting in it. Now, if you're having just straight liquor at 1.5 ounce serving, you're probably going to consume about 100 calories. And then when you start adding all of the things into it, depending on what that is, that's just going to keep adding calories to that cocktail. And some are, pretty little, but if you're adding in maybe some juice or soda or, whatever, maybe some simple syrup or things like that, that's all going to add in the calories. So you have to keep that in mind. If you're counting your calories throughout the day and trying to mind what you're consuming, maybe for weight purposes or whatever, you have to remember to add those cocktails in because they can definitely add up calorie-wise. All right. So another thing to keep in mind as we get older, as our bodies age, we handle alcohol a little differently. And basically your body just can't handle as much as it used to. Now, if you're a very seasoned drinker, you might build up, a tolerance, maybe you've heard. So even if you get a little older, you might still be able to handle what you normally can, or used to. But typically, as we get older, our bodies have a harder time processing alcohol, and particularly in older women, they become more sensitive to the effects of alcohol. So also keep in mind, just because you have built up that tolerance to alcohol doesn't necessarily mean that it's not having those same effects on your body. So despite the fact that you could maybe handle 3 or 4 drinks in a day, it's still recommended that you stick to the 1 to 2 or 1 drinks in a day. All right. So again, I know I'm kind of being a bummer. We're going to talk about some of the the downsides to drinking alcohol, and this is more so for people who drink it excessively, not so much for people who drink it responsibly or moderately, like we talked about earlier. Okay, so especially as we get older, we all know that drinking alcohol can start to impair your your motor functions and your mind, and as we're older, we're already at a higher risk of falling, fracturing bones, etc. And then alcohol is certainly just going to enhance that risk of falling, breaking a bone, and then of course, if you're still driving, it puts you at risk for car accidents and injuring yourself and other people. Now, from a health perspective, here are all the things that can be problematic. So excessive drinking, hopefully it's not a surprise to hear that it can increase your risk of certain types of cancer, liver damage, immune system disorders, and brain damage, which can also impair your cognition, which we're certainly trying to preserve as we get older. Excessive alcohol drinking can raise the levels of a certain type of fat that gets stored in that's in your blood. That's your triglycerides. It's probably not a word most of you haven't heard before, but so when I was talking earlier about how those excessive calories get stored as fat, those are the triglycerides. They're getting stored as triglycerides, which then create like a fatty buildup in your arteries, which then can increase your risk for heart disease and stroke. All right, so drinking alcohol excessively can worsen some disease processes that you may already be experiencing, like osteoporosis, diabetes, high blood pressure, stomach ulcers, and then also if you're already experiencing dementia or memory loss or mood disorders, alcohol can certainly worsen that. Sometimes alcohol can mask other problems going on, so that might be harder for your doctor to evaluate you for certain things or to discover certain disease process. So an example is that alcohol can cause changes in your heart and in your blood vessels, which then could lead to like a heart attack or a stroke. And if you're drinking a lot of excessive alcohol, that can dull your senses and your tolerance to pain, so you might not be aware that you're having symptoms of something like a heart attack or something worse going on. So you may not be prone to report it to anyone because you don't realize something's going on when something pretty serious could be happening behind the scenes. All right, so alcohol, again, as we know, it can impair your brain function and your cognition. It can cause, as we get older, it can cause more confusion and forgetfulness, which then, might, if if you already have dementia or Alzheimer's disease, you're just kind of worsening that progression. And if you don't, it could be mistaken for that. And, you might be wrongfully diagnosed or evaluated by a health practitioner. So we've also already talked about, obviously, the calories involved in drinking excessive alcohol. And if you're not considering that in your daily calorie intake, it can very easily start to cause weight gain, which then can increase your risk for all kinds of different disease processes. And then, of course, excessive alcohol can lead to a dependence, which then, becomes a whole, different level of problems mentally and physically. All right. So again, I know it's, like I said, kind of being, a downer with all of the talk about the negative effects of alcohol. But, especially this time of year, there are just so many social gatherings and so many celebrations. We probably tend to drink a little more at this time of the year. But most people are aware of some of the negative health effects of alcohol and can, keep that in mind when making decisions to drink or not drink at parties, or, when you're trying to decide how much you can drink or should drink. But I definitely understand, again, like I said earlier, having alcohol at a party can certainly liven things up. Sometimes it gives you, that liquid confidence to maybe get out on the dance floor and enjoy yourself, or mingle with people you're not as comfortable talking to, or playing games, or being silly, and all those things that happen at all these celebrations. So I certainly understand somehow, how those things, how it can kind of help you enjoy your holidays a little more, again, as long as we're being responsible about it. All right, so are there any positives to drinking alcohol from a health perspective? So interestingly enough, we talked about all these negative things that can happen, but there are also research studies that kind of show some of the opposite effects of some of the things we just talked about. There are some studies out there that say that certain types of alcohol can, and within certain limits, and I didn't put all those statistics in here, but there is some research to suggest that some amounts of alcohol can actually lower your risk for heart disease, or lower your risk of dementia, and increase bone density. However, some of that is not as conclusive, and some of the, unfortunately, the research that shows some of the negative side effects are probably a lot more conclusive than some of these that, are maybe suggesting some of these positive effects. All right, so one alcohol or type of drink that always has a good reputation from a health perspective is red wine. A lot of people have heard that red wine is good for you. So red wine has properties in it, the flavonoids and antioxidants in it that are found in the tannins of red wine. And this is also the same for beer. Beer has some of those antioxidant properties. And these are things that are good for reducing your risk for certain types of cancer and heart disease, and it can help your brain health. However, this is according to the American Heart Association, there is no proven cause and effect link between drinking alcohol and better heart health. It's the clarification is that there are these properties in red wine that can contribute to your heart health, but just drinking red wine, it's kind of like the negative effects overpower those positive effects. So they are not suggesting that you drink red wine for good heart health, that because the cons outweigh the pros. But there are properties within that red wine that that you can get in other foods, in coffee and tea, in berries and brightly colored foods. They all have these antioxidants as well, which can offer those same positive effects without the negative effects of alcohol. All right, so there is another research study that shows, again, kind of like we were saying earlier, where this is like kind of a suggestion and it's not as conclusive, but there are some research studies that show that alcohol has been known to provide a small increase to your HDL, which is the good cholesterol that is more heart healthy. But again, the cons kind of outweigh the pros. So there are other ways that you can eat for good heart health and not experience those negative effects of excessive alcohol and drinking. All right, so with all of that being said, I'm just here to offer you information so you can make a responsible decision about what's right for you as to whether you are going to drink or not drink and how much you want to drink. And also, I can't emphasize enough the aspect of moderation when drinking, and then also drinking responsibly if you're driving or operating machinery or taking medications and things like that. But with all of that being said, I hope that you enjoy your celebrations, whether you drink or not. Enjoy the holidays. I hope you get to spend a lot of time with your loved ones and your family and your friends and come out to all of the celebrations here at Cedarfield. I'm really looking forward to all of that Cedarfield offers for the residents and the staff. We always appreciate it as well. So that wraps up things for today. I think next week I will have the week off, and then the next week I will be back to kind of wrap up for the year, and then we'll take our holiday break, as I'm sure we all will. So have a wonderful holiday season, everyone, and I will see you in 2 weeks.